So as soon as the presentation is up here again, I will continue, but the next hour is going to be completely different. First of all, I have a presentation, 100 charts. I don't like questions, I don't like to be interrupted, and I don't like fun. So please concentrate. It's going to be boring. You were talking about risks before and taking risk as an entrepreneur as well. I think it was Julie who took a major risk last year in October. She invited me to come here. She didn't know anything about supply chain. She didn't know anything about me. We just met at the roof terrace meeting she had somewhere last June. We quickly talked. I got an invitation. I didn't know what to expect here. Yeah, the second. And then after that, Julie said, when I gave the presentation here, Julie said, I didn't know that actually logistics supply chain can be that fascinating. So that's what I tried to bring over to you here now again, when the presentation is up.
Can you use these?
Okay. Thanks a lot. Because to bring this story to you, I invited Bob. Bob is probably the best person to explain to you and bring the fascination of logistics and supply chain to you. So imagine Bob is the supply chain manager of a big company. And Bob had several challenges in the last 12 months. I mean, in general, he has challenges, but the last 12 months were just incredible for him. And some of these challenges, I'm sure you know as well. Corona. So just to give you a few examples what Corona implications are on a global supply chain. Suddenly, port operators don't go to the port anymore. Vessels cannot be unloaded with cargo because port operators are not there. Truck drivers in US, you can't find them anymore because they're not driving. They're ill back home. They can't work. Another very fascinating example about Corona. I didn't know that before. One of our clients is Brinks. Brinks is moving gold, silver around the whole world. There are 8 certified refineries for gold in the world. 5 of them in Switzerland, 4 of those 5 in the Italian part of Switzerland. Tessin. Tessin got shut down because of Corona. What happens? No gold movement around the whole world anymore. The gold price is going up just because of Corona. Just because you cannot manage your global supply chain anymore. That's one of the impacts. Who knows about this picture here? Brexit. Let's ask John. John, do you know how many trucks of Tesco are affected by that? It's not just a challenge that now suddenly all these trucks are blocked and you cannot calculate the ETA anymore and you don't know when your cargo arrives at the factory and maybe your factory stands still. There is also a risk here. It's an accumulation risk, a cumul risk. If something happens here, the insurance is not going to pay because you now have several containers or trucks in one location and insurance companies do not accept that. If you don't know where your cargo is, you have a major problem. 300 vessels currently waiting, entering into ports. Adele, you're good in math. You mentioned yesterday or the day before yesterday. So 300 vessels, each of them around 15,000 containers, multiplied by an average value of 65,000 euros. Watch your language, lady. I'm not used to that. Hey, sorry, no laughing here. It's a boring presentation, guys. So it's around 2 billion euros currently blocked in the supply chain out there. 2 billion working capital blocked. You can't do anything with that. Somebody is missing that cash. And that's one aspect of it. The other one is, think about there are somewhere here Swiss chocolates going around. The lifetime of a Swiss chocolate is 9 months. If this is blocked, you cannot bring it to the store. You cannot bring it to the shelf. You cannot sell it anymore. You have a quality issue. Who is controlling that? Who knows about it? Everybody knows about this here. We know all the stories behind it. Something that probably most people don't know, there is a terminology called Havary Gross. So what happens is if Evergreen calls for havre gross, that means all the cost for recovering these vessels here, for stopping it, etc., will be shared among all the parties who have a container on this vessel. So if you don't have an insurance for havre gross, you have to pay in the next 2 years several thousand. So think about Peter Dehaan importing his sugar, whatever, mints from China to somewhere else. And the average value of these mints are not that high, but now he suddenly has to pay another 20, 50, 100,000 on top because he simply has to share all the cost for recovering this vessel. Incredible. If you don't know about it, you will have a major issue. Freight rates, in average, over the last years, from China to Europe, $2,000 for bringing a container to Europe. Currently at around 12,000. If you have not planned this in, you have a major problem with your margins on your products. So just giving you these few examples, it kind of makes it obvious that managing global supply chain has become a very complex problem. Supply chains have become more complex, but also the disruption that can happen. It's like a heart attack. If you cut here, it has a major impact on the whole system. And if you cannot plan that in, if you don't have reliability, it's going to be a major issue for Bob to manage that. And surprisingly, 94% of companies do not know about where their cargo is, what's happening to the cargo. They have no visibility into the system at all. 94%. So, no surprise, that's how Bob looked like when I met him. But I told him there is a solution to that, and that's Arviem. And now I'm coming back to my role as Arviem. So we, at Arviem, we offer a service to bring in visibility into the global supply chain. But visibility is not all. Visibility, just telling you the container is there or your truck is there, is not helpful. What can I do with it? So therefore, what we're saying is it's not just about bringing in visibility, it's about managing the execution, helping to optimize the execution of the global supply chain. It's about managing risks in the global supply chain, and it's about managing the money, so supply chain financing in the global supply chain. And the Arviem services are around these three: supply chain finance, supply chain execution, risk management, and supply chain financing. But before we reach this here, we have to somehow figure out what's happening down here. So in average, think about, in average, you have in a global supply chain, you have 40 different parties involved, from banks, customs brokers, port operators, truck drivers, etc., etc. And as I've just shown before with the few examples we had, it's a very fragmented and complex system to run. If you don't have visibility into that, you cannot manage it. What you don't see, you cannot manage. So our first step is that through another package, cargo monitoring we call it, we have an eye on what's happening out there. We have our own sensors out there at the edge of the network, there where the cargo is. We monitor the temperature, the humidity, the position, the shock, the door opening, whatever it is. And we collect that data independently of any other party in the world out there, or any stakeholders. So I'm not depending on the truck driver. I'm not depending on the Maersk, on the vessel. I'm not depending on the port operator. I collect my own data with my own devices. And that data I can trust. And that data I then use up here with machine learning, with BI, with AI, all these buzzwords that you know about. We use them then to offer these additional services on top. And that's where I quickly want to go into now. So let's quickly look at supply chain execution, one of our service packages there. What's happening here? So to give you an example, this is Nestle. They ship a container from here to here. What they didn't know is the container did not get unloaded. So suddenly it's now going up to Antwerp, unloaded here, moving back to the final location in Liberia. If you don't know about that, again, you cannot manage it. It has an impact on the quality, it has an impact on the production line later on, it has an impact on your working capital services, it has an impact on the carbon footprint. If you don't know that, you cannot manage it. So we're following it, and we calculate then the ETA so that whoever follows, the warehouse manager, the production manager, can now start planning better. Food waste. There are 2 billion tons of food waste happening every year out there. 30% during transportation. So temperature goes up, frozen pizza thrown away. If you can see what's happening out there, and if you can take actions, you can prevent food waste. That's a major cost around order fulfillment that we can improve. Or carbon footprint analysis. If you can analyze along which route you should go. So Julie, I have a problem now with clicking there from distance. No, I will. It's okay. We can analyze on which route you have the most optimal route with respect to carbon footprint emission, and therefore optimize the routing with respect to that. Risks. Just to give you another feeling about risk management. Companies globally have losses in the around 8 to 13 billion euros a year. So 8 to 13 billion euros a year are lost because of damage, etc. You could reduce that, as I just said with the food waste. If you can monitor, if you can reduce that, this goes down, most likely. Now, a company would say, yeah, but I don't care because this is insured. That's true. But in average, they pay 16 billion, not in average, globally, they pay 16 billion euros in premiums. So that's more than actually they have losses. So that could also be optimized. And then what all these companies forget, the following costs are 2 to 5 times higher than the actual loss. So I might have cargo lost while in transit, and maybe it's covered by the insurance company, but the following cost, lost production, lost sales, etc., is not covered. So if we, through monitoring, can address this here and optimize the premium, we can also at the same time reduce this here. And these are billions of savings we can achieve for our companies out there. How do we do that? I will speed up quickly. We have a risk profile. We look at all the data that we collect, and then we create risk profiles. We create static risk profiles. So for example, we are looking at all the data we collected for the shipments from Nestle, Chile to Costa Rica. We look at the temperature, the humidity, etc. We define where condensation has happened during which month, and we're creating these kind of maps. So we can tell Nestle, if you ship a container end of October, the likelihood of having condensation in that container months later is that. Therefore, you should put in some bags, desiccant bags, to reduce the humidity there. So that's basically looking back. But now, together with Hitachi, we also have created formulas that can calculate the mold in the container, and we can do predictions. I can tell now by the data coming in, by the formula, by the experience we have, dear Nestle, you have shipped a container yesterday. We see the evolution of temperature, humidity, and most likely in 3 days, mold is going to happen if you don't take actions now. And that helps, again, to reduce the loss of cargo and all the following costs that we have. Or again, the accumulation of risks. We can predict that if this typhoon is coming into Singapore or whatever, and you currently have so many containers there, but there will be other containers coming into the port in 2 weeks and others cannot leave because of the typhoon, you will have an accumulation of so many containers or so much value in that port, which is a risk, so take some actions. So it's now about prediction, looking into the future and what can you achieve there. And last but not least, the financing aspect. Summarized here by the World Trade Organization, they say that the shortage of trade finance is the second biggest obstacle in the growth of the global commerce. So just for you, quickly summarizing here. Companies, if they ship something from, let's say, China to US to Walmart, while the cargo is in transit, Nobody is financing that. It's on the risk of the exporter in China. They have it on their balance sheet. They don't make money, or they cannot use the cash to work with the cash and grow. It arrives in US, then you have another 150 days payment terms for Walmart. So let's say half a year, the cash is simply blocked. And there is no bank, there is nobody who is financing that, because they don't want to take the risk, because they don't have visibility into the global supply chain. So what we're saying now is, if you put one of our devices at the edge of the network, there where the cargo is, if you allow us to collect data and do the risk profiling while your cargo is in transit, we finance the cargo for you. We buy it from you. So the company that we're working with has not only the financing in earlier, it's also off balance sheet, so they're more attractive for other banks to grow, and they can use it for the prosperous growth of their company. So the improving of the visibility in an extended definition of visibility, just not knowing where the position is, but what I just tried to explain, helps to increase the profitability in a company. And that's why Bob today looks like this, more relaxed by using the Arviem services. Thank you, Julie. These are many questions at once. First of all, I think the COVID doesn't help us immediately right now situation, because companies, again, if you have in a global supply chain 40 different parties involved, you don't change that ecosystem of a global supply chain within months. That's simply not happening. But it raised the awareness. So people today are used of kind of getting this Amazon, I order today, I get it tomorrow. And this kind of thinking, behavior, expectation in global supply chains was disrupted now. So people suddenly realized, oh, if something happens in the Suez Canal, well, I don't get my stuff delivered anymore. So the awareness was raised thanks to Corona, thanks to the Suez Canal, etc. But it will still take a few years. It helps us now that we can hopefully easier go into companies and say, look, we have a solution for you, we have a service for you. But also then, I don't know to whom I mentioned it yesterday, when we first started with Nestle, the very simplest offering we had to Nestle was, we said, vessel has arrived in the port, container has been unloaded. After 4 days, we sent an alert and we said, it's still there. It's still there. The next day as well, time exceed message, it's still there. But the question is, to whom are you sending that? Who is responsible within a company like Nestle to receive such a message and then do something? Who is in charge to pick up the phone and call the trucking company to go there and pick up the container and move it to the warehouse? That takes time. To change such processes in a company, that takes time.
That's really kind of my question, because I think Roy said something along the lines of, to manage the ecosystem, it's how far or how much does the ecosystem lean in to build it with you, right? How ready are they to understand there's a problem? Here's an entrepreneur who's the problem solver. And are you getting resistance? Are there pockets of people that are enabling it with you? Are you spending all of your time educating still on the problem, or is everybody leaning in with you to grab hold of this solution and take it forward?
There is still a lot of education required still. And one thing that certainly helps is, which is also a threat for us, there is recently a company in US, they just got an investment of 100 million in February, 200 million now months ago. So that, again, raises the awareness in the investment, let's say, industry ecosystem. Oh, something is going on here. That helps us hopefully as well, that we get more support and we can go out and do more education. The market is also educated from their side. That certainly helps. But till we are there where we want to be, that still needs time.
Thanks, Stefan. Very clear presentation. I think there's no question that people need this. What did strike me as listening to it is that when the early ERP systems were introduced, the organizations always underestimated what it took to implement. And I think your case example of exactly who in Nestle is going to pick up their phone demonstrates that. So my question is, to what extent are you able to facilitate the introduction within the client organization? I mean, they're having to change their methods in order to install. And that's often very painful. So is there an education of how does this get solved?
So there may be two answers to that. One is the reason why we said we need our own devices out there is that we are becoming independent of others to collect that kind of data. So I don't want to be depending again on a Maersk or a Kühne or a port operator to tell me what's happening out there. Second, I can't trust the data that they send me. The surveys show that if a shipment starts 2 weeks after the shipment has started, the different databases from the involved parties already differ by 20%. So I cannot trust that. So therefore, I need my own device that collects the data. And through that, I'm becoming independent of the others, which means I'm hopefully faster than trying to integrate with all others. So that's a way how to speed it up. The other answer is I always have to keep the complete picture in mind that we can sell to the company, because at the end, again, I want to sell execution, risk management, everything. But I'm going into the company and I select a specific champion. For example, JTI, Japan Tobacco. I go in there and I select the security guy because I know he has a major issue. One container lost, that's 2 million cargo gone. If I can help him prevent theft, he starts doing something with me. I can then use the data to go to somebody else in that company and say, by the way, we can also address your quality issues, or we can address your working capital, or we can do this and this and this. So it requires a flexible sales organization who knows about the broad service portfolio we have and selects the right people to start with. Very, very, very good question. Look, again, I take the example of Nestle. If you go to Nestle, you cannot really sell to the headquarter. Even though we have a global framework agreement with the headquarter, you go to every single market. And these guys, they exactly say the same as you. If we have wanted to integrate that now into our system, we have to go back to the CIO of the headquarter, and that takes 5 years. So our user interface is web-based. They simply go to a separate page and we are completely independent.